Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
The blood washed away, but the guilt never does. Welcome to Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi, featuring psychotherapist and author Siobhan Scott.
It has now been 2 years since Bryan Kohberger allegedly parked his white Hyundai Elantra outside of the homes of those 4 college students in Moscow, Idaho, entered the home with a K-bar knife and proceeded to take 4 young lives. That's the story. And that's a story that will be challenged in court coming up in August of 2025. But it has now been 2 years since that crime occurred. Joining me to discuss, Siobhan Scott, psychotherapist and author. Hard to believe we are 2 years into this. The trial itself, literally about a year away from right now. They're estimating it'll wrap up right around this time next year. Where are you at on this story? There's 2 years in and where everything is standing, the state of the families, the state of Kohberger and everything.
Yeah, which should be nice to get it over with, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's incredible the amount of time. And when we talk about what kind of process helps the families, I think having the trial pending for years certainly doesn't help the families. It really leaves them in limbo.
And it's a frustrating one because on the surface, I honestly, I don't quite understand why this one is taking so long. There's not, at least on the surface, obviously there's the gag order, but there's not seemingly a lot of information that's new, that's coming up, that is needing to be dissected and gone into. It just seems like we're just biding time here and hoping that people in the public, maybe this flows away a little bit from, the stream of consciousness, and the harshness of the reality of this crime isn't so stinging when it comes to this in a jury.
Yeah, you do wonder if that's part of the strategy, is that stretch this out so people forget the name Kohberger, and forget all the information that we already have been given about it, because it's a really long time.
Kohberger obviously still maintaining his innocence from behind bars. Initially, the statements were, I'm looking forward to being exonerated. At least that's what the attorneys initially had put out. He hasn't made any sort of exonerating statements, at least, that the public will accept, other than I like to drive around and look at the stars. And that's just an interesting one to me in general, if you're going to make that statement at all aloud. The fact that you're expecting people to believe it, and then that's a viable answer. It reminds me of a little kid making up a story as to what they were doing when they weren't in the pantry eating the Oreos, despite having Oreos all over their face. And it's just, I was walking out on the sidewalk. I was just walking in circles. That's all I was. But they believe that you'll believe it. And they're kind of surprised when you're not believing it. What do you think is going through Kohberger's mind right now? When he throws these things out there, or his defense to throw these things out there, and not a whole lot sticks.
Yeah. And it's also, as soon as I heard that, I thought, what a creepy thing, because that's what sex offenders do at night, is they drive around, they look for people, they peep in windows, and it's a creepy thing to do, to be out prowling at night. And so for me, that certainly didn't, soften the sense I had about the guy. It just sort of escalated the sense I had that he was a creepy person.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the interesting thing about, I think, a lot of creepy people. They don't know they're creepy people.
Exactly.
They just are, and that's what allows them to perpetuate and continue being a creepy person. Is that just something in people where, like, look, if that's who you are, you're just too close to it because it's you, and you will just never, ever see that? Is that why it's really hard to get through? You never really see a recovered creepy person. If the person was creepy 20 years ago and you run into him at a Denny's 20 years later, they're still creepy. There's not a lot. There's no self-awareness that came in going, maybe I should have changed some of my ways.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's it. That a creepy person truly does not realize how creepy they come off. And so coming up with something like, I just like to drive around at night in the dark all night long. It's like, okay, that's not earning points for you there.
What do you think the defense of Bryan Kohberger can do to lower the level of creepy that potential jurors are going to naturally feel about him if they know just in one iota about this case?
Yeah, I don't know how much they can do other than they dress him up nicely, gave him a good haircut. From all external appearances, he's a nice looking guy, and he's in all likelihood not going to testify. So I think that's the best they can do is clean him up and sit him in there and tell him not to glare at people, hopefully.
And the thing is, he has amassed somewhat of a fan base. It's nowhere. And when I say that sparingly, because I don't compare it to like Karen Reed's fan base where it's like a 50-50 split. I think there's a handful of people out there who are getting behind this guy, despite, common sense. Why? Because we're still hearing these stories. We still sometimes see these letters of these women who, obviously if we can do a profile of them, that would be interesting in itself. Mm-hmm. But they want to attach themselves to this man and proclaim his innocence, although they've never met him, but somehow seem to, make this story about themselves when getting out there and trying to communicate with him. What is going on in the minds of people like that? And does that affect this case in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I don't think it'll affect the case to have this this group of women who are on the rescuer fantasy that this is this poor innocent man and that they can kind of come in and comfort him and make his life all better. It's a way for women like that of feeling important. And usually these are people who don't have a lot going for them in real life. They're often people who have been rejected by society, rejected by other men. And when they start writing to a prisoner, they've got a captive audience, they get attention back, and it feeds their ego. And it almost becomes like an addiction for them. And they really get a lot of emotional gratification out of it. So yeah, he will have his fans. We've still got groups online dedicated to the Columbine killers, largely made up of young adolescent girls who weren't even alive when all this happened. And so it's another weird pattern of psychology that never seems to go away.
No, it's like, and what do you do about people like that? Because right now it's just like, well, they live amongst us.
Yeah.
What do you do? There's not a lot you can other than recognize it, I think. But it's spooky. There's a lot out there. There's a lot. Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
You're in the thick of a true crime saga, every detail sinking in. And then, wham, a commercial about something you couldn't care less about. It's like being served a microwaved dinner at a 5-star restaurant. But it doesn't have to be this way. Go for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. With True Crime Today Premium Plus, you get uninterrupted, ad-free episodes, extended interviews that dig even deeper into the muck, and early access so you can brag to your friends. It's like ordering the secret menu at a crime buffet. So, search for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and savor every twisted detail without interruption.